Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Thursday, January the 28th, the Vatican Secretary of State begins a week-long visit to the West African nation of Cameroon. A row between the European Union and one of the COVID-19 vaccine producers threatens to upset vaccination plans for many European countries. And US bishops welcome efforts by the new administration to boost food and housing aid for the poor. In the Vatican, I'm Linda Bordoni. The Vatican announced today that Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Parolin is making a week-long visit to Cameroon. As Devon Watkins reports, his visit is a sign of Pope Francis's care and concern for the African continent.
The Vatican Secretary of State arrived in Cameroon on Thursday and will be making the rounds of the African nation until next Wednesday, March 3rd. During his visit, Cardinal Pietro Parolin is scheduled to meet with government leaders, celebrate Mass in Bamenda Cathedral, and visit a church-run center for street children in Yaoundé. He is accompanied by Monsignor Ivan Santos, an official at the Section for Relations with States of the Secretariat of State. The Vatican says the Cardinal's visit is meant to show Pope Francis's care and concern for the African continent, as well as the attention of the Church. It comes as the region is enduring great suffering during the COVID-19 pandemic. The official visit is also intended as a concrete sign of the common, supportive, and inclusive commitment to protecting and promoting the dignity and good of all, a willingness to show care and compassion, to work for reconciliation and healing, and to advance mutual respect and acceptance. The Pope called for this type of commitment in his message for the 54th World Day of Peace, which was entitled A Culture of Care as a Path to Peace. Meetings with the country's government authorities are planned, as well as various religious appointments. Cardinal Parolin will celebrate the Eucharist in the Cathedral of Bamenda, during which he will impose the pallium on Archbishop Andrew Nkeafwanya. The Vatican Secretary of State will also visit the Household of Hope in Yaoundé. The center was founded 40 years ago by Jesuit Father Yves Lescan to provide assistance for street children and young prisoners. The visit of the Pope's closest collaborator comes as Cameroon is enduring a period of intense unrest and violence. Several deadly attacks have already been carried out this year in the northwestern part of the country. A roadside bomb killed 5 people, including a journalist, on January 6th in the northwest region. Other armed attacks killed another 15 people in the space of only a few days. On January 9th, a Christian pastor was murdered along with his 5-year-old son in his own backyard. Cardinal Parolin's visit will hopefully spread a salve of peace over the suffering population. I'm Devon Watkins.
The European Union and Britain-based COVID vaccine maker AstraZeneca have vowed to resolve a bitter row over supply shortages to the bloc. As Stefan Boss reports, the comments came after the company warned that significantly fewer jabs would arrive on time.
The European Union is furious about delays in promised deliveries by coronavirus vaccine makers such as AstraZeneca. The company had agreed to deliver millions of doses in the first quarter of this year, but it then said significantly fewer jabs would arrive on time because of production problems at European plants. Instead of receiving 100 million doses, the EU is now counting on just 25 million doses by the end of March. After crisis talks with AstraZeneca, EU Health Commissioner Stella Kyriakides reminded the company that hundreds of thousands of people have already died of or with COVID-19 within the 27-nation EU.
We are in a pandemic. We lose people every day. These are not numbers, and they are not statistics. These are persons, with families, with friends and colleagues that are all affected as well. Pharmaceutical companies, vaccine developers have moral, societal and contractual responsibilities which they need to uphold. The view that the company is not obliged to deliver because we signed a best effort agreement is neither correct nor is it acceptable.
The firm has now pledged to improve cooperation, but European officials say that vaccine maker AstraZeneca may be cutting jab deliveries to the EU because it wants to sell the shots at higher prices to other bidders. It's the latest setback in EU plans to vaccinate 70% of its adult population by the summer. Earlier, vaccine producer Pfizer warned it would temporarily reduce its deliveries to the EU, citing production issues. Ironically, the country where AstraZeneca is based, Britain, which recently left the EU, says it will meet vaccination demands. But it comes amid global tensions over the fair distribution of vaccines. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged wealthy Western nations not to hoard coronavirus vaccines. For Vatican News, I am Stefan Bos in Budapest.
Pakistan's Supreme Court has ordered the release of 4 men accused of the murder of US journalist Daniel Pearl in 2002. The Wall Street Journal's South Asia bureau chief was kidnapped and beheaded while working on a story about extremist groups in Pakistan. A British-born alleged militant was originally convicted of masterminding the operation with 3 accomplices. However, Pakistan's top court has now upheld a ruling acquitting the men. A lawyer for Mr. Pearl's family said they were in complete shock and the decision was a travesty of justice. Meanwhile, US officials have indicated they will try and launch legal proceedings against the men accused of his murder. Omar Sahid Sheikh in the US denies wrongdoing. In Australia, the Catholic bishops have released information regarding a new national protocol for addressing child sexual abuse. It's due to take over the past protocols as of the 1st of February. Francesca Merlo tells us more.
The news of the new protocol came in a media release on Thursday and is aimed at providing a framework for Catholic entities across Australia to respond consistently to people raising concerns or allegations of child sexual abuse. In it, the bishops explained that the National Response Protocol, which was adopted by the Australian Catholic Bishops' Conference at its November 2020 plenary meeting, is a product of 2 years of work and widespread consultation within and beyond the Church. Archbishop Mark Coleridge, president of the Bishops' Conference, said that the adoption and implementation of the National Response Protocol is an important step forward, and we thank those who have brought this thorough process to completion. Archbishop Coleridge noted that as well as outlining principles and processes for responding to concerns and allegations of abuse, whether historical or contemporary, the protocol also offers guidance on how to engage with those affected by abuse. He said the new protocol offers a trauma-informed approach to supporting those who have been betrayed in church settings and demands an approach from the church that is compassionate and just. It also insists upon respect for each individual's personal story and circumstance, he added. The media release also informs that the implementation of the National Response Protocol from the 1st of February will mean that Towards Healing and the Melbourne response will be phased out. Archbishop Coleridge explains that pioneering in some ways when set up in the 1990s, the 2 earlier protocols have been much criticised, in large part because of inconsistent or incomplete application. However, he continued, one of the strengths of the new protocol is that it provides a single national framework which will ensure a consistent approach to the handling of concerns and allegations. Finally, the media release explains that church entities that have matters already being managed under Towards Healing or the Melbourne response can continue to use those processes until the matter is resolved. Towards Healing and the Melbourne response continue to be valid until the end of 2021, while church authorities implement the National Response Protocol locally. The National Response Protocol will be monitored regularly to allow for ongoing refinement and improvement, and it will be sent to the Holy See for approval. I am Francesca Merlo.
In the United States, the president of the U.S. Bishops' Commission for Internal Justice and Human Development says he welcomes moves by the recently inaugurated administration to boost food and housing aid to the poor. As Father Benedict Mayaki reports, Archbishop Coakley issued a statement in which he also highlights the importance of prioritizing the disadvantaged and vulnerable during this challenging time.
Bishops in the U.S. have hailed recent announcements from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, which established increased protection and aid for people made vulnerable by food and housing insecurity. The USDA, in a statement last week, announced a 15% increase to the pandemic electronic benefits transfer and said it will continue to explore ways to increase supplemental nutritional assistance program benefits to all participants, especially the lowest income households and those struggling to afford a healthy diet for their families. In similar fashion, the CDC said it will extend the current order temporarily halting evictions till at least the 31st of March 2021 due to the hardships caused by the pandemic and the resulting housing affordability crisis. Welcoming these announcements, the president of the U.S. Bishops' Commission for Internal Justice and Human Development, Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City, expressed gratitude for the newly inaugurated administration's early actions to address urgent food and housing needs for those experiencing hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. He said that the CDC's extension of the eviction moratorium is a positive step towards ensuring housing stability and keeping communities safe. The Archbishop went on to hail the USDA's announcement to expand nutritional assistance to hard-hit Americans for its timeliness, noting that people have experienced dramatic income reductions or job loss. He added that these actions demonstrate a strong commitment to those in need, as they will help address the unprecedented levels of hunger among children, as well as ensure that supplemental nutrition assistance benefits reach those most in need. Concluding his statement, Archbishop Coakley reiterated calls to the government to pursue the common good and prioritize the poor and vulnerable during this challenging time. He also reminded authorities that adequate nutrition and decent housing are basic rights under the Catholic social teaching, and these rights require action. I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.
Target 8.7 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals includes the securing of the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labour, including recruitment and use of child soldiers, and by 2025 end child labour in all its forms. As Alpha Diallo of the UN Information Service told UN News, child labour defines any hazardous work, depriving children of their childhood and their education. He also pointed out that Africa is the continent with the highest child labour rates in the world.
Almost half of child labour happens in Africa. It's 72 million exactly. The African continent is followed by Asia and the Pacific, and 70% of children in child labor work in agriculture. Almost half of all these children work in occupations or situations considered risky for their health and lives. Let me illustrate this point with an example. Some 45 million children between the age of 5 and 14 depend on work for their survival in West Africa alone, according to the Economic Community of West Africa. And the situation is likely to be getting worse with the pandemic, which may reverse years of progress in the fight against child labor. But for many experts, the high poverty rate is not an excuse for allowing the new generation of children to miss educational opportunities and future access to decent work.
And that was Alpha Diallo of the UN Information Service talking there to UN News. That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. Join us again tomorrow at this same time for more. You can also visit our web portal at www.vaticannews.va, and you can like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. My thanks go to Gustavo Messina in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Linda Bordoni. Bye-bye.